Hey there, it's Rachel Mullins, the host of Hashtag No Filter Fridays on Public House Media.
This is Sam Kirby, host of Cinema Stories. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
It's time for the Gregg and Dave Show.
Unjustifiably in a position that I'd rather not be in.
Featuring Greg Watsnyder.
Give me Twinkies or give me death!
And David Bobke.
I am the Queen, yes.
Bravely bringing you the stories of the strange.
We're not on a madcap romp.
It'll be an adventure. We're going on an adventure.
What, you high?
Now sit back and enjoy the show.
That is my least favorite thing to do.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Gregg and Dave Show on Public House Media. I am one of your hosts, the Gregg.
And I am Dave Show.
He is making a very triumphant entrance today, Dave Show.
Yeah, well, you know, I like to show off for our studio audience that we keep behind glass.
Right.
And yet I keep expecting applause. Every week I expect all this applause after I say my name. And I hear nothing, and I keep forgetting it's because the audience is behind a wall, and they're told to be quiet.
Right. You know what they're doing? They're doing a golf clap, Dave.
Are they?
That's exactly what they're doing. A golf clap. Is that what
you guys are hearing? Mrs. Bale, can we get a response from... They can't hear us? Well, why are they here? She's shrugging her shoulder. Okay, well.
Yeah,
you know, we should have dealt with this before the show. That's my fault.
Right.
All right.
They're just here for the free food.
We have food?
Well, you know, I don't know. Something Mrs. Bale organized.
I don't think that qualifies as food. Well, anyways, we should talk about the show today.
We should talk about the show today. By the way, you are listening to the show, and you can get this show, just in case you don't know, because you're already listening, on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and wherever good podcasts are available. Right, Dave Show?
Yeah, presumably.
And also, on our very wonderful host website, we'd like to thank Public House Media for hosting the show. Baxter and everyone over there, thank you. You can go to thephmedia.com and find all the great shows that Public House Media produces. Again, that's thephmedia.com. You can also search Public House Media on Facebook, coming soon to other social media networks as well. So be ready for that, everybody. But now we do a lot of live Facebook podcasts, so to speak. Ours is not live.
Nope.
But some of them are. And we also invite you to follow our show page, where we may go live sometimes.
We might.
It's the Gregg and Dave Show on Facebook.
Yep, you look for the Gregg and Dave Show, look for the orange and black logo. I believe it's facebook.com/gregg-dave-show. And just remember to put 3 G's in Greg.
Yep, so give that a like, give that a follow, give that a share. We would be very grateful on this Thanksgiving Eve as we're recording this show. It may not be Thanksgiving where you're at, but it is almost Thanksgiving where we're at. Dave, do you have any big Thanksgiving plans?
I think a Thanksgiving lunch coming, and then a sort of delayed Thanksgiving lunch on Saturday of some sort.
Excellent.
Yep.
That is great. What's your favorite Thanksgiving food, Dave Show? Actually, we'll throw this out to all the listeners, even though you won't get this until a couple weeks later. What's your favorite Thanksgiving food?
Yeah, what was your favorite one this year? That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
I had a friend on Twitter who said one of his 3 favorites is the cranberry sauce from a can.
You know, I was just thinking cranberries.
I don't know how people generally feel about the cans. I feel like that's another very divisive issue, like a certain pizza issue we won't get into today.
Right.
Mrs. Bale has already made that painfully clear. We're letting that sit for a while.
You know what I like on Thanksgiving, David? I like the pumpkin pie.
Oh, yeah.
Just give me a couple slabs of pumpkin pie, and we're good.
Absolutely.
And maybe some turkey and some stuffing. You know what else I like on Thanksgiving, Dave?
What's that, Greg?
I like me some bacon.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's funny you should mention that, Greg, because we have, you know what, really all of our stories have to do with discovery today.
Yes.
That's sort of the intertwining theme of today's show. So
discovery.
The title probably will have, something discovery related. I feel like I should be Peter Graves today or something. Today, on Discover. Our first story comes to us from sfgate.com. A fine website, I presume. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
This is an interesting little story that popped up. Researchers discovering seaweed that tastes like bacon and is twice as healthy as kale.
Wow.
I'm seeing this actually came up a little while ago. How have we never heard of this? This is a thing that should have been shouted from the mountaintops.
I agree. I mean, twice as healthy as kale. How can they even calculate that?
I don't know, but it says here. I guess we should probably read the story. Researchers at Oregon State have patented a new strain of seaweed that tastes like bacon when it's cooked. The seaweed, a form of red marine algae, looks like translucent red lettuce. It also has twice the nutritional value of kale and grows very quickly. And did we mention it tastes like bacon?
It does taste like bacon. I mean, I haven't tried it, but I imagine. I wonder if it smells like bacon, too.
Oh, my gosh.
Because bacon has the best smell.
It really does.
To it in the world when it's frying.
It says here, according to Oregon State researcher Chris Langdon, it should say genius, but it says Oregon State researcher Chris Langdon. His team started growing the new strain while trying to find a good food source for edible sea snails, a very popular food in many parts of Asia. The strain is a new type of red algae that normally grows along the Pacific and Atlantic coastlines. Langdon realized he had his hands on something with a lot more potential when his colleague Chuck Toombs visited his office and caught a glimpse of the growing seaweed. He said he thought the bacon seaweed had, quote, the potential for a new industry for Oregon, which it seems like it could use. Because, Greg, I can't think of any other industries that Oregon is particularly known for. I mean, maybe there's some sort of seafood that they're known for that I'm not aware of.
Right. I can't think of anything else either.
I can think of a friend of mine who was born in Oregon. That's about it. But we have no plans on eating them anytime soon.
One of my favorite authors is from Oregon.
And that would be?
That would be Donald Miller, author of Blue Like Jazz.
Ah, well, there you go. See, you can't say you never learn anything on the Gregg and Dave Show.
Right.
You don't learn much on the Gregg and Dave Show, but you learn something.
Right, exactly.
It goes on to say here, this stuff is pretty amazing, Langdon told OSU. When you fry it, which I have done, it tastes like bacon, not seaweed, and it's a pretty strong bacon flavor. Seriously, how have we not made a statue to this man yet? This is amazing.
Yes.
I mean, to have something healthy that tastes like bacon, I mean, it would make everybody happy. This makes us as meat eaters happy. This would make vegetarians happy. I don't think even PETA could complain about this.
I think, Dave Show, that we should get to test this. Since we're talking about this, I think we either need to take a field trip to Oregon or they need to send some of this stuff to us. However you send stuff like that. And we need to taste test it to get the official approval.
Yeah, I'm just baffled that this wasn't front page news when this came out.
Right.
I mean, this is the sort of thing that could bring the entire world together.
Well, Dave, this just shows that you can have your kale and eat it too.
You can lead your kale to water, but you can now make it taste like bacon.
Get on with it!
Speaking of that, have you ever had bacon-wrapped water chestnuts?
Oh, yes.
Best things
Delightful.
ever.
That's the only way to have water chestnuts, really.
Yes, exactly.
I just, nothing against the water chestnut people, but...
A water chestnut without bacon is just nothing.
It's like showing up at school with no clothes on. It's just like a bad dream.
Exactly.
You know how water chestnuts come to be, Greg? Do you know they're planted in the ground or they get picked off trees or whatnot? This is your trivia for the day.
I don't.
Water chestnuts come from the ground where you can... I have no idea if this is true. I'm just making this up as I go, but let's pretend it's real. Water chestnuts, yes, come from the ground of healthy soil.
Of healthy soil.
And you're asking yourself, the Gregg, how do I know if my soil is healthy enough to have water chestnuts?
I am asking myself
Springing
that.
up, popping forward, like some kind of a thing that pops forward. Well, you're in luck because our next story deals with that exact subject.
It deals with it, huh?
Mrs. Bale, that segue sucked. Can we cut that? Okay. Anyway, let's move on to our next story. This coming from realagriculture.com. And the story is, healthy soil will eat your underwear.
This sounds like a really bad... One of these other stories that, like, could be a really bad movie title.
Yeah,
Healthy soil can eat.
this is a bad horror movie right here.
Yeah.
It's going to be one day. I'm quite sure of it. If we can have Sharknadoes and Birdemics, we've got to have dirty
Right.
underwear rising from the grave
Mm-hmm.
and throwing water chestnuts at us. The story reads, how healthy is your soil? If you want to know, all you have to do is bury your underwear, says Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs Soil Management Specialist Adam Hayes. So this is from Canada. So already, grain of salt. We love you, Canada. Adore you. But, you know, your soil is snow, basically.
Right.
I think. I'm pretty sure they have like 13 months worth of snow up there. It's like nonstop.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I've ever been there. But anyway, that's my understanding. Hashtag stereotypes.
I've been there once.
That's right. You were there once.
I was
You
there
had
once.
expensive oranges, as I recall.
I did. I very much had expensive orange juice. And there were hot dog vendors on every street corner and no mosquitoes in Toronto.
I neglected to ask you this last time this came up. Have you been to Tim Hortons?
I have been to a Tim Hortons, but not Tim Hortons in Canada. I've been to Tim Hortons, I believe it was in Columbus, Ohio.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And there's a donut place, right? They have good donuts, Tim Hortons?
Yes, coffee and donuts is their thing.
Yeah. So yes, I've been to Tim Hortons.
We may have to make that a poll. If you haven't been to a Tim Hortons in Canada, were you really in Canada?
Can I share one other fascinating fact at Canada before we get back to underwear?
All right, but we definitely have to talk about my underwear eventually. But yes.
Okay, we'll talk about underwear eventually. But I went to a small liberal arts institution, tried to say that 3 times fast, called Carroll University in Waukesha, Wisconsin. And for many, many years, we had the first American franchise of a Canadian coffee shop called The Second Cup.
Mm-hmm.
And we were the first. I don't know why they chose to put the first American store of this location in a university library. But Second Cup, you can only find them in Canada. But up until last year, you could also find it at Carroll University in Waukesha, Wisconsin.
Intriguing.
So there you go.
Yes. And you gave me a challenge a moment ago, so I will complete it now. That. Say that 3 times fast.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Thank you. Another Gregg and Dave Show challenge has been conquered. Success music.
Oh, good for you.
All right. Yes, back to the underwear story.
Yep. So how do I tell if my undies are soiled, Dave? Show?
That's a great question, Greg, and one that I don't want to delve into, but here's what the rest of this story says. Last summer, Hayes helped members of the Renfrew County Soil and Crop Improvement Association, man, these are really long names, bury underwear in their fields to determine the amount of biological activity in their soils. And no, that is not a euphemism. They buried cotton briefs 6 to 8 inches deep in the soil in late May and then dug them up in early August, which would be normal time to pick your underwear. It says Hayes explains that healthy soils teeming with bacteria, fungi, and earthworms will eat and devour your cotton briefs, but they suffer much less damage in soils with lower levels of biological activity. So if you bury your underwear and it gets chewed up and it barely even looks like underwear anymore, you have good soil.
So you can't blame it on the dog or the cat, like the dog chewed up my underwear or the cat chewed on my underwear. You can't do that anymore?
Well, you could. You'd just be lying.
Mm-hmm.
And I think really this is a win-win, especially if you're a farmer, if you want to use your soil for planting, you know, water chestnuts or whatever.
Or pineapples.
It's a win-win because if you bury your underwear and then you dig it up some months later and it's all chewed up and whatnot, you know you've got great soil, you're in great shape for the next season, and you got something to look forward to. You can sit in your lazy boy and daydream about the possibilities. On the other hand, though, if you dig up your underwear and it still looks like underwear, you have underwear.
Underwear?
Under there.
So look for a video come late May. We're going to post a video on our website. Dave Show has volunteered to put one of his pairs of cotton briefs in the soil around his home in urban Milwaukee there, and volunteered to do this experiment. Right, Dave Show?
Yes, I'm actually getting a new pair that will be available to everyone soon of the Gregg and Dave Show underwear. Officially licensed. It has our logo on the back.
Perfect.
And we're gonna bury that, and if the G-strings are ready by then, we'll bury one of those too.
Perfect.
Yes, looking very forward to that. So yeah, it says Hayes encourages farmers to bury underwear in their fields to assess soil health, and recommends farmers watch the Soil Your Undies Cotton Test video produced by the Innovative Farmers Association of Ontario for tips on how to run the experiment on their farm. It seems like a pretty basic thing, but apparently you can look that up on YouTube. And if we think of it, we'll post it on our Facebook page, too.
Yes, which you can find at facebook.com/gregg-daveshow.
I don't know how I got my full name on there and you didn't, but...
I don't know.
That's just too bad. Mrs. Bale, was that your doing? No? Okay, she's shaking her head no. I trust Mrs. Bale. She wouldn't lie about a thing like that. But anyways, it's time for us to go to a break, Greg.
Yeah, before this show becomes fully soiled, we need to take a commercial break.
The Gregg and Dave Show will be right back.
They taste delicious.
Dave Show?
Yes, the Greg.
What do you think about the Miss America pageant?
I think it is definitely an event, and it's on television.
It's an event, it's on television.
And it involves a lot of walking.
Yeah, apparently. Well, if you'd like to learn more about the Miss America pageant, you can check out Head Over Heels, which is a bi-monthly podcast available on thephmedia.com or iTunes or Stitcher or Amazon, or the list goes on, iHeartRadio. And you can check that out and find out what we're talking about. That's Head Over Heels, delves into the Miss America pageant. Who knows? Maybe Miss Wisconsin will win this year.
Yeah, lots of interesting pageant news. And one of these days, Greg, we are going to have the Gregg and Dave Show pageant. And I don't know about you, but I think I'm walking in heels pretty good now. I've got my red dress, too.
You look very stunning in your red dress, by the way, Dave Show.
Oh, thank you. Well, you know, it's a cute little number I picked up a couple of years ago.
That little ditty you heard was Kevin MacLeod's Wallpaper. If you need music for a YouTube video, a podcast, pretty much anything, please check out Incompetech.com. And Kevin MacLeod guy is pretty cool. You can get a lot of great music. All you really got to do is give the guy credit where it's due. Incompetech.com. Tell him the Gregg and Dave Show sent you.
It's not your fault.
You've made it this far. Now, the rest of the Gregg and Dave Show.
It's not your fault.
Welcome back to the Gregg and Dave Show on Public House Media and wherever good podcasts can be found. I am the Gregg.
And I'm Dave Show. And Mrs. Bale, where did you get this impersonator of me for these commercials? I do not own a red dress. I sold it years ago. Crying out loud. Red dress. I will not wear a red dress for the show. I'm sorry. Greg, Mrs. Bale, I'm sorry, studio audience. I am not wearing a red dress. It's not fitting on me. I will wear green or blue, that's it.
So a blue dress, Dave Show, will suit you well?
A blue dress, I've been told people don't recognize me when I'm in the blue dress.
Oh, okay.
Not that I wear it often, by any means. In fact, I haven't worn that blue dress in many, many years.
So I have a question, Dave Show.
Yes, Greg.
Have you ever forgotten where you've parked your car?
Well, no, because I don't own a car.
Right. Neither of us own cars.
So that's it for the Gregg and Dave Show this week. Thank you for listening. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you had another question?
Neither of us own cars. Fun fact.
That's true. Thankful that you don't own a car.
Yes.
That would be problematic.
Yes, as I am indeed totally blind.
Yeah, you know what's scary, though? You have more driving experience than I do.
I do have a bit more driving experience than you do, and that story will be on another edition of the Gregg and Dave Show.
Yes, indeed. But we do have one more story, and I think it's a nice story to go out on, personally. This comes to us from MSN.com through The Independent. Man forget where he parks his car, then finds it 20 years later. Can you remember what you were doing 20 years ago, Greg?
20 years ago, let's see, I would have been 19, probably in a class at Waukesha County Technical College. What were you doing 20 years ago, Dave Show?
20 years ago, I would have been probably in 8th grade and having acid reflux issues.
Okay, well, that's great. Thank you, middle school, right?
I would rather have lost a car than had that reflux problem. That kind of
right.
Stuff. But nonetheless, this person finding their car after 20 years, back in 1997 in the German city of Frankfurt, a man reported his car as stolen to the police. 20 years later, the authorities in the city have tracked down the missing vehicle, only to discover that the man who owned it had, in fact, just forgotten where he parked the car and had assumed it had been stolen. At least that's what he's telling his wife. The vehicle was found in a garage in an old industrial building that is due to be demolished. The car was in the way of the demolition, so it was reported to the police, who then investigated who the owner was. And according to a German regional paper, the man, who is now 76, was driven by the police with his daughter to be reunited with the car. Greg, have you ever lost anything for 20 years? That's what I'm wondering here.
Well, some people may have said that I've lost my mind for the past, 20 or so years.
Yeah.
But
well, that's gone, man.
Right.
It's
just gone. But yeah, I'm trying to think of anything that I've lost, and I suppose I should have thought about this before. Anything that I've lost that I've found like several months or years later, and nothing's coming to mind right now.
I've got 2 items I can tell you about.
Okay.
One, I lost my Sergeant Slaughter action figure. Gosh,
Okay.
probably more than 20 years ago. Never found it. And one day, I hope to be reunited with it. We'll keep you posted on that.
I'll keep my eyes open for it, Dave Show.
I would appreciate that very much. And second thing, I was actually going through some old audio cassettes a couple weeks ago, looking for a particular tape. And I came across a tape. You remember the Greenhouse, Greg? That
Yes.
fine radio show?
Yes.
It was a great radio show here in Milwaukee, 3 to 6 p.m. on weekdays. And Fridays at 5:30, I believe, they had a segment called Sprecker's Stories of the Strange, which is sort of a predecessor to our show, really.
Right, really.
Yeah, and I had a tape just full of that segment from, multiple weeks with all of these strange stories that they covered in that. And it was like, 3-4 minute segment usually. But, man, it was... Oh, that took me back. That was nice.
Dave Show, would you like to explain what a cassette tape is to any members of our audience who are under the age of 21 or 22?
Sure. Audio cassettes, kids, are the things that mommies and daddies listened to.
Yeah.
And they were plastic, and they had little stuff in them. Sort of filmy things.
Yeah.
You recorded on them.
Right.
I feel so old.
I know. Me too. So does this guy. He's 76, and he got reunited with his car.
He got reunited with his car.
So
yes.
what happened there? He just was he excited to see his car? Does it say?
It says here the car was no longer functional and had to be scrapped, so that's unfortunate. But, it's sitting around for 20 years. I guess you can't expect it to be. Greg, it doesn't say here if he was excited about finding the car or not.
Yeah. I wonder how long he walked around, because I can remember situations from being a child walking around parking ramps for like minutes upon minutes, not hours, thankfully. But, you're at your Brewers game and, where did we park the car?
Oh.
Now we have cell phones that can take pictures of these things, and we can say, we parked it in Dodgers 1 or Giants 4 or something like that. But do you remember ever losing your parents or any friends that you may gallivant around with? Have they ever lost their cars?
I actually just remembered when I was playing softball many years ago at this point, but I was in a Wednesday night league, and not a terribly good team, to be perfectly honest, but we had a guy who would drive his truck to games, and somebody decided to borrow his keys, because we had the tavern that sponsored our team was very near the field, basically across the street and maybe like a minute's walk, very close.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody decided to borrow his keys, run out to his truck, and then move the truck from the east side of a block and basically just drive it straight up to the next street, hang a right, and then park it on the southern part of that street.
Mm-hmm.
So he basically moved it from, let's say, the third base foul line to the outfield and left field.
Okay.
Is essentially what happened. And he went out and thought his truck had been stolen. So a week later, when we saw him again, he said, "Yeah, somebody stole my truck last week. I had to report it to the police and everything." We're like, "Dude, it's right there." And he thought that was very interesting.
And then he wrote a country song about it, and now he's making millions of dollars.
Gosh, wouldn't that be a great ending to the story? I think the guy's actually just burying fruits and vegetables and like growing them in his underwear. That's what I heard.
Speaking of endings, this ends the Gregg and Dave Show for today. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you again on the flip side, as they say. Remember, if you want to check your soil, always put your underwear out there. I'm definitely doing that right now.
Yeah, better do it before it gets too cold out, before the ground gets really hard.
Right. Have we had the first frost yet?
Yeah,
I think we have.
I feel like we have.
And probably the second one. And the third one, too. No bearing underwear from me.
You know what keeps me warm and toasty, though, Greg? Is Public House Media.
Public House Media, yes. Check us out on thephmedia.com. Dave Show, see you next week.
Greg, that's what you think. Mrs. Bale. You sweet pile of sassafras and molasses.
You've been listening to The Gregg and Dave Show. The Gregg and Dave Show theme is Take a Chance by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com.